What are the next steps? We've got Beth, Young, and Lee. So are folks ready to go?
Yes, I'm Yuhan, and I will introduce the next step of the intelligent networking, and I share my screen.
Go ahead.
Okay, everyone
Hello.
can see my screen.
I'm back.
Yes, we can see it.
Hello. Okay.
That's perfect.
I'm glad that everyone can attend this meeting, and this time I'm going to focus on the development of the AI white paper of the intelligent networking, and it included the objective, content structure, and some recommendations of the intelligent networking. And with the introduction of 5G and the virtualization and the codification of the telecommunication technology, and now the telecommunication networks achieve the next level of complexity. And the communication industry needs to realize network automation and intelligent transformation. And how to realize network intelligence and the relationship between network and automation platform now is lack of industry consensus. In addition, new players enter the traditional telecommunication marketplace. This will have an impact on the production cycle, survey introduction, and the CSAD, and maybe it will impact the overall life cycle management. And now new ideas to leverage AI or machine learning need to be discussed and need to be understood. And this AI white paper, intelligent AI and machine learning white paper will explore what AI and machine learning means to telecoms vendors and customers. And the culture shifts the industry need to make it a success. And what to bear in mind when rolling out machine learning across the telecom network. The LF1 UAG want to publish this documents, this AI white paper to identify and highlight the latest thinking and recommendations for building and supporting the intelligent networks. And the white paper assumptions and the overall objective of the white paper. First, we assume that the audience of the white paper are the technical and the strategic leaders in the telecom industry who is interested in and understanding the role of intelligent tools, AI, and machine learning can have in support their network infrastructure customer.
Can I add some additional comments to that? Because this came up on a question this morning during Lee's presentation. The answer is it's not just the telecom, it's telecom industry in the broader sense, so that it includes the vendors as well. So
Okay.
I view this as a partnership that, you know, the telecom operators are driving the requirements, but the vendors also need to step in as well.
Okay. Okay. I will change it.
It's in the document. That's fine.
Okay. And go ahead. We plan. The paper is 7 to 10 pages in length total. And we don't declare or propose a definition solution. We just share UAG operator community point of view. And the purpose of white paper is to share information about UAG member companies' approaches to network intelligence. And the workspace address is here, and you can get more details of project schedules on it. And next, the timeline of the white paper. First, we start writing of the white paper in May, and we have a plan to comply this white paper final draft on August 3rd. And we will share a form paper magic on August 17th. And we also have a UAG review and final version on August 13th. And the final, we will publish the final white paper on August 27th. And we also have planned to hold webinars and AIFN ones in September. And the AI white paper consists of 4 main parts. First is the background and introduction. We could learn the key takeaways and the challenges and the problem statements of intelligent networking. For the key takeaways, such as the industry needs to deliver some new service quickly and efficiently. And there is a need to introduce AI technology into network intelligence framework. Now some AI and machine learning is already in place, but we need more research and development to establish the best practices. And however, the open source community can play a key role in future developing frameworks and the best practice. And the problem statement of the intelligent network is how to realize network intelligence and its relationship with automation platform. At present, the industry domain lack of industry consensus and lack of the cross organization, lack of the industry standards, lack of the cross-domain closed loop realization, and lack of the industry efficient, etc. And
Can I break in? So I think it's
Okay.
important to understand that this looks like the contents of the white paper is a lot more finished than it actually is. So part of the point of this this session is to get feedback from the community about what we're doing and give us and help with the direction of the paper. So with that, you can continue, but I'd like to make it more interactive.
Okay. And the second part is the AI survey and key findings based on the AI survey published by LFN, and we will analyze the results and give the key findings, which includes the current progress, platform strategy, and application scenarios, and the future development, and the industrial ecology. And the third is requirement and strategy. We will analyze and will give our viewpoint of requirement and strategy of intelligent network. And the first part is next steps and recommended actions. We will give the recommendations for network intelligence, improving strategy, and the recommendations for network intelligence testing and certification, and the recommendations for network intelligence ecology. And the highlight one is the AI survey and the key findings. First is the current overall progress. We observed from operators and digital service providers and manufacturers' perspective, respectively. And we'll build as the operators and the digital service providers' perspective in 6 autonomous levels, from manual operations and maintenance to fully autonomous network. Most operators are at the assistant operations and maintenance. And we will build at the manufacturer's perspective. Most manufacturers have adopted some AI technology in their network at pilot phase. Only 15% of manufacturers have a long-term plan for adopted into their infrastructure or production at popularization phase. And on the whole, the industry intelligent network transformation is in the initial phase, and the level of maturity about intelligent network is still low. And for the strategy for improving network intelligence, we respectively to extract the manufacturers and the operators and the digital service providers perspectives sample, and observe the evolution trend for different R&D phase, from initial proof of contact to the popularization phase of network intelligent collaborative strategy adopted by the company. We can find that the higher research and development phase, the higher percentage of adopting the strategy that built an AI platform suitable for all intelligent network application scenarios, rather than coordinate different vendor solution at a network element level, or implement an end-to-end process using AI tools. And with the exception of the POC and the pilot phase, all operators enter the promotion commercial phase adopt a unified AI platform strategy.
Yeah, can we open this to some discussion? I know there's a number of questions in the chat. So Ming Fan says, will the white paper specifically link between AI/ML function to the current network tools and management such as network telemetry? And I think that's a great question. And you know, I think Steve is on, and I know you've been thinking about that.
I check the chat box now.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Okay.
not sure if like how interactive is this, so I can ask live also. So my first question, maybe it's a bit basic, but what do you mean on intelligent networks here? So is it like some kind of an AI managed network, or what is that? I guess it's different from IN as you know it from 3G architecture.
Okay, what is the definition of intelligent network? I think in this intelligent network, I'm not sure what is the definition of intelligent network on 3G. And
So that's an interesting point, Gergely, because what happened is that the survey used the term AI/ML, and I felt that that was kind of limiting. So I actually changed the white paper to be called intelligent networking. But we actually have a section where we talk about what we mean. And in terms of the white paper, not in general, we're talking about using AI/ML tools to improve service delivery in some way. So that might be network performance, which I think is what the 3GIN definition is. Or it might be a way of identifying faults or even as we've been as many of as what came out in the survey, which is a lot of the respondents were concerned with just operational issues, improving the intelligence of the operations, coordinating tickets, for example, identifying faults that spread through the network, making, aggregating tickets, etc. So it's a pretty broad definition in my mind. And again, I want to open it to other people for conversation. I mean, does it make sense to make it pretty broad in this context, or should we be more narrow about its only tools for improving network performance?
I just feel, hi Beth, yeah, this I just feel, like have
Saad, we can't hear you, sorry.
Your audio is really weak. Try again.
hello, hear me?
Yes. Yes. go
Ah,
ahead.
there you go.
Yeah. I just want to have a quick question. I think among all the operator community, at least there is some agreement in terms of the level of automation, right? Like the
level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. I think either we should limit this study to use like AI ML, like use AI ML to improve the network efficiency or whatsoever, or somehow we should stick to how.
But Saeed, could that include operational efficiency? Not because operational efficiency is not going to improve the performance of the network. It's going to improve the efficiency of the delivery of the network.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm still not able to quantify like what is the real objective of from this, you know, like if you can just, you know, give us like for example, what we want to summarize in this paper or something, you know.
So yeah, let me talk about that because I've been working on the paper and the outline quite a bit. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify what are the highest priorities for developing AI/ML tools, whatever that means, for the community. So the objective of the paper is to say, based on this survey and based on our research, it looks like these are the areas that are going to be most of interest to the community. So for example, we're finding, and that if you look at the survey results, one, we have found that it's the vast majority of companies are not very far along on their journey, their intelligent networking journey. And most of them, many of them are focused on applying these tools to operational concerns rather than network performance. And that seems to be sort of the broad thing that we're pulling out of the survey. Now, what does that translate to when you are taking those survey results? So what we're taking from the survey results is that right now we should concentrate on creating operational tools that will help the community. And two, and I know this has been this was a conversation earlier today, the data sets, and this wasn't necessarily in the paper, in the survey, because we didn't ask, but there needs to be a common understanding of the data sets, which we don't have today, right? And that's a very complicated issue because every vendor, every operator has different definitions of the data. It might be the same data, but they have different definitions of it. So we need to even create some of these tools, we need to have some common definition. So does that help you understand sort of the thrust of the paper or the point, the purpose of the paper?
Yeah, I mean, on the high level is clear. Yeah. Thank you.
So one thing is what it would be a better naming. I know, I called it intelligent networking because it made more sense, because AI/ML is sort of so like, what does that mean? But maybe intelligent networking is, what does that mean too? I mean, what would be a better set of terminology that would help us understand what the purpose of this paper is?
So I think it would depend on how and where you want to apply, Beth. And I think you mentioned, for example, that some people think it only in terms of helping with operations. In that case, it's probably semi-autonomous or autonomous networking. But as you know, intelligent networks has been overused terms in the telco industry for 40, 50 years now. So maybe we should use another term so it's not confusing.
Maybe I'm okay with brainstorming.
So one term that some people are using is, and to separate it out from operational purposes, is the use of Intelligent Information Network, or IIN. And then it has applications to things that you were discussing before, non-operational things, is making the network more intelligent for users in, say, very smart technologies, whether it's the transportation or the grid or whatever. It could also be for other users in optimizing traffic. With respect to the operational users, I think the purpose of AI is to automate, as you many things, at least autonomous networks, maybe. So.
But Pankaj, as I said earlier, it looks like the tools, or the reason that that companies are deploying or interested in deploying intelligence into their networks is twofold: operational efficiencies, which don't necessarily affect the performance per se, other than maybe there'll be less downtime, and performance, as in like mapping networks to applications and having tools that watch for performance anomalies and correct for them in real time, or give us better insights into how the networks are performing. Those are very, very different sets of tools.
Exactly. So since this is a broad paper, do you want to have categories of use cases? And
I think that makes sense.
Then the paper can tackle different categories of these use cases, maybe in the same paper or different papers.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, Beth, I was just going to say, sorry, this is Steve Casey. I was just going to say also, we should probably keep it focused on more of the early stage. To your point, most of the respondents were at the early stages. We saw some that were saying later stages, but those are a little questionable. So the use cases probably should also stay early stage, because most of the industry is still nascent. With all the hype that's going on out there, I don't truly believe that there's that much intelligent network going on. It's just kicking off. And that's why a lot of these operational use cases are so popular, because it's low hanging fruit. And to your point then, so focus the use cases more on early stage, because that's where a majority of the respondents are at. And most of those respondents, right, that we had in this survey were on the high end. And what I mean by the high end is they're very large companies that have well-established networks in place. So they're looking for things that they can help to augment to make their networks better.
Right. Right, if you look at the slide here, it says AI algorithms are 60% of the primary requirement. You can't create AI algorithms without good data. Garbage in, garbage out. So getting back to you need good data set to create those algorithms.
And to Beth's point, we've all investigated this, and we're all doing work in this area, I'm sure, but you need a semantic layer that helps out with ways that you can map this data back, because every supplier you're going to work with is going to have a different term for utilization. They're going to have a different term for loss, for delivery, and things like that. And so you have to handle that at some centralized location, is our feeling, to help put that back together so you can get a full picture of what's really happening in this network and what's going on before you can even start tackling the problem of algorithms, because it starts with data, and then it starts with investigation of the data, and then it moves on to, okay, here's the problems, and then you move on to, here's the algorithms that can help us with those problems.
Dead silence.
Any comments on that or any other details or?
Steve, the metadata is very important. Otherwise, the data is useless, as you said. So,
Yes.
or you will have specific algorithms on a user base. You will never get to generic algorithms.
Right.
Yes.
And Pankaj, within the open source community and LFN, I think it behooves LFN to be the champion for that, creating or fostering an environment that allows us to create a data set that can be used across the industry.
True, that would require sharing by all kinds of people of their data. But again, as Steve pointed out, for that data to be collected and collated, etc., you need the definitions. Secondly, you may need, for example, other information regarding, and I'm not thinking of an example right now, but you could have how granular is that data. For example, somebody's 2, maybe other person's 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe even some thoughts, Beth, around data standards, because one of the challenges we're all going to face, right, as we work with a number of different suppliers and pull this data in and look for insights from it. But if there were some standards around that metadata, it would be very helpful for onboarding this, because everybody knows from a practitioner in this space, it's the 80-20 rule. And sometimes I say more 90-10. You spend more time handling and getting the data and getting it in a state that you can use it. And that's the 80-90%. And you spend 10 to 20% actually working with the algorithms and developing the models. And that needs to be changed if we expect to accelerate progress in this area.
And particularly if you're going to make real-time decisions on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's essential. Right.
Yeah.
Now, Etsy has certain information models. They may not be complete. I think so. If LFN, as you said before, has to take the lead to getting it all standardized, participating with other similar bodies, if you will.
Right. So do you know of any other bodies that are working? I see that Sridhar is mentioning that Aniket has started the synthetic data generation. Do you know of any other bodies outside of Aniket that's looking at creating synthetic data that's acceptable?
So the question is, you can generate synthetic data through algorithms themselves, or are you taking actual data and then abstracting it in some form?
Abstracting it.
Synthetic data. So
I mean, our experience, in launching, the VNS product was that the synthetic, it didn't, whatever testing we did in advance was not, the results were not the same as the results we saw in real life on our real networks. So we ended up creating a lab that actually uses production, uses the production environment in a safe way to allow us to test these services. Because otherwise we were just missing things.
On the topic of data, while Steve, I agree with you about the low-hanging fruit. If we don't expand our vision, what could happen is that the data collection could be very narrow, and we would have to start again. For example, if we started to think about end-to-end performance optimization, then multiple parties within that end-to-end path may have to share data. So I think you need to think broader than just localized data collection as of now, if you are to make it future ready.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The localized piece of it is more of a speed to market thing, right? It's easier to get a hold of that. Yeah. And we're looking across the entire stack. So you're 100% correct. but most people start with, whatever is easiest to get a hold of, and you move to the hardest stuff. Let's be honest. We're going through exercises now and saying, okay, what data is easy for us to get, and what data is going to be really hard? And really hard can mean on the technology side, or it can be really hard on the internal workings of the business and the restraints around that data. So yeah, you are correct. It's a whole stack model.
It has to be. It has to be. So let me just kind of be broader. What does the people on this call want to see in this white paper? What nuggets of information would you say, wow, this was worth my time reading this white paper?
From data perspective, I think it would be very nice to see some kind of like a set of properties of the data or tools around data should have, so we can start build a shared data set from different networks data. Like, I don't know, what kind of like data obfuscation methods shall we use? I don't know, but what data should we hide? What data can we share? I think this is a very important starting point to build up this data set.
Okay, so Gerge, who do you what organization do you think, does it make sense for it to be within the LFN umbrella to drive this?
Well, that's a very good question. I think yes. So in LFN, lots of actors from the industry are participating. So if we can start defining this here, that would make sense, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you come from a vendor, right? So I'm assuming it would benefit Nokia to be able to create tools, because obviously, telcos buy tools from Nokia, create tools that would benefit everybody, benefit your customers.
Exactly, and we would be also very happy to have a big data set which is generic enough so we can teach our algorithms.
Right. Yeah. It would be, I mean, I'm voting for a data set that can, obviously Nokia can use it, but obviously everybody else can as well. I like Pankaj's comment. Where are we headed? 1 to 3 years, 3+ years, use cases now, what's in the pipeline? I think those are good. I'm trying to take notes too, by the way. And
I guess on the timeline use cases, I'll just take a stab at that. I would rather see the shorter term initially. Again, some respondents in this said that, 17% said they'd extensively deployed AI. That seems like a high number to me. Maybe it is, but the majority of the respondents are just in the starting phase of the phases of this. I think when you start taking a longer term viewpoint of where AI is going, it gets very, very prickly and it can go all over the place. So I like the shorter term, more applicable pieces of it, just personally.
Well, I think it would be more applicable in the short term, because we don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, this is Rani from Samsung. I'd like to echo that. I think what we're missing, at least for my company, is we have good researchers and we have a good hold of the technology, but we kind of don't know how to take it to the next step and what use cases it could be applied to. So if the white paper can propose some practical next steps, or where the technology can be applied, or what use cases could be addressed in the short term, that would help us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it would help. It would help us too. I mean,
Yeah.
as telco operators. So both sides would benefit. And I know we do have a couple use cases that we've created. We have a page. Let me bring that up. I'll put it in the chat. Let's see. Lee, do you know where that list of use cases that you put together is?
Sorry about that. I've just accessed to the meeting room. Could you please try to repeat again which kind of use cases you mean?
You put together a spreadsheet. It had a list of use cases. I know I added some. I know Ronnie, you added a few.
You mean the AI data
Yeah.
and model sharing use cases, right?
Correct. If you could,
There is a
if you
wiki
put a
page.
link.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a wiki page. Yeah.
Yeah, I can try to put the link to the chat window.
Yeah. Oh, I think I just found it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I found it. So I encourage everybody to add to it. So can I share the page? See if I can.
Yes, if you have interested in data sharing project, or if you have some kind of contribution or potential ideas, you can try to join us in this project.
If you Hung, if you could stop sharing, I can share the.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay, should everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Beth.
Good. So we have a couple cases, and I'll be happy to talk about them. So we have congestion prediction migration. This came from Ronnie from Samsung. So this is used for, and Ronnie, you can add more details since you added it. This would be used to predict performance for closed loop automation. So this would allow on the fly configuration changes to the network based on congestion and other degraded performance. Is that an accurate statement, Ronnie?
Yeah, it's a more proactive handover based on detection of which cells are more congested, and trying to in advance avoid the situation and provide the end result is better user experience.
So this is aimed at the LTE, the 4 and 5G. Although I don't see why it couldn't be used for wireline networks as well.
Yeah, I would
sure.
agree, Beth.
And the next one is another one Ronnie contributed, which is sleeper cells.
The idea was to use some telemetry to identify cells that go into this undesired sleep mode and kind of steer traffic around them, and again make it seamless or to the end user, and continue providing the service level although the situation occurs.
Right. And I added a couple on the operations side. So this is related to fault detection, which is we see this a lot where, particularly in redundant systems, we don't necessarily see that one piece of the redundant system is misbehaving. It's not down, because we'll see it if it's down, but it might be misbehaving. It might be flapping. It might be, somewhat degraded. But, we won't see it, not necessarily, because the systems don't pick up on something that goes on for a long period of time, but very infrequently. I know we had a situation, this was a couple of years ago. We had systems that it was again, a redundant set of systems, and it would reboot like every 4 or 5 days. So the system didn't pick it up as a pattern because it was too infrequent. And of course, the system wasn't taken down because we had a redundant system. So it took us a while to figure out, well, oh, this was even happening. And then once we figured out that it was happening, what was the cause? It turned out to be a software bug in that case. But again, that's something that can drag on for months before anybody even notices it to do something about it. And then, of course, the last one is of obvious interest to be more efficient about the usage patterns, so that you don't have to build to the peak.
Exactly, Beth. So I think that's gathering the data, right? Establishing the trend, and then using AI to do forecasting, X number of days in advance, or weeks or months, to show when you're going to hit problems.
Right.
So but my request was kind of to maybe the white paper could lay the ground for what could be the practical next steps to collaborating on these use cases. And earlier this morning, Jason Hunt and I, Jason is the head of the Elephant Tech, we're chatting about maybe the tech can help or provide input to this white paper. And that could be some area where we may be able to provide also the vendor perspective and propose some platform for collaboration or a way to collaborate on moving these use cases forward. Because we have them, but to be honest, I don't know how to take it to the next step, or what should be done next, or who can I work with to move it to the next phase.
Work with us. I mean, we're working on the white paper, so.
Yeah, and as I said, you can take it as me volunteering to work on the white paper, and if others in the Elephant Tech or the Elephant in general are interested, I think we can collaborate on better defining what could be the next steps.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I mean, we welcome the input. So,
yes, I think Pankaj has already mentioned one use cases in chat window.
right. Yeah, I already put it into the notes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
I didn't put it in the use case thing, but I did put it in the notes.
Yes. Once you add the use cases into the table, then you can try to the operators who is interested about it can try to work with you.
So just a general question, is there more interest in the use case or the use cases, or is there interest in other areas on this white paper?
What happened?
Well, firstly, the use cases can be put into the data and model sharing project, and then maybe we can consider to add one
one session or kind of content in the white paper to summarize the use cases we have done in the project. It is just in my thought because the white paper is still in the writing process, and we can try to discuss that.
Yeah, I think this is good. I mean, that was the purpose of this session. So Lee, I think we have succeeded with what we intended to do, which was to get feedback from the community. And because the white paper is in process, we can, add the feedback. I love the idea of including the use cases.
I think use cases help frame the discussion, because having like a very abstracted general discussion about AI for network optimization is good, but is less practical in my view. So the use cases help frame the discussion and provide more concrete examples and help us understand what, because we talk about collecting data and building data set, but what kind of data and what types of telemetry or whatever do we need? I think it's really hard to have a discussion at the very abstract level, and having use cases just help frame the discussion.
Right. Well, and the use cases will also help, as you said, they'll help define the data sets. Because we have a huge data set, right? We could have the entire, all packets passing through the internet. That's the Uber data set. And all the messaging and logging and everything surrounding those packets is the total data set. But that's, that's huge, right? That's petabytes of data a day. So obviously that's too much. You have to make it more usable.
Yeah, but based on the use cases, you may need just a fraction of that, or maybe information from the RAN or a subset of that. So once you analyze the use cases, you know what data you need.
Right. Well, it also makes it actually a quantifiable problem. It's not an NP complete problem anymore. Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about, I know we only have about 8 minutes left. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of your findings?
Sure, I definitely can, Beth. We looked at a number of different things throughout the white paper and applications. And to your point, a lot of this was based back on, okay, what do the use cases look like, or what are the needs? And when we looked at this from a future state perspective and the application scenarios, it really balanced across all the different technologies. And I have to admit here, I kind of struggled with some of this. One of the definitions I was looking for in this is, what is a network? And I know that seems extremely simplistic, but looking at the number of respondents and the types of responses, we obviously cover wireless and wireline networks. And to Beth's point earlier, and some of the other speakers as well, we have use cases that are specific to wireless. We have some that are more general to wireline and wireless. And I think one of the perspectives we should take from this is to say, let's define it as a network, which includes both of those, because a lot of these use cases can be bridged across this. And I think that's why, to the point, going back to my original point, I think that's why these applications scenarios like service assurance and operations and maintenance and network optimization all had equal balance in the results. And that's because they apply across all these different technology areas. So you can apply that to wireless or wireline, irregardless. It just comes down to the data, where you gather from and what the end nodes look like. And even on the intelligent applications and looking at those, it was also, again, balanced across technologies. We saw that network capacity forecasting was very high on the list of things that were asked for. Self-organizing networks, again, very high up there. And SLA, intelligence, perception, and assurance also. So it splits between these, and I think it's because of the nature of the respondents that we had. I did also some analysis on looking at the different pieces from who responded to the survey, as well as what were the job functions. And there were commonality across those as well. You saw that there was, demand of one of the, of course, from the telco vendor perspective on the software developer drivers, demand from telco customers was one of the top things, and that would make perfectly good sense. And supporting, new customer-facing products was also very high up there, and simplified operations, right? As we introduce all these new technologies, the networks get more and more complex, and there needs to be ways to simplify them, because we can't reinvent the wheel every time something new comes out. And then from a global mobile telco perspective, with the network drivers, again, it's simplified operations. That's not a big surprise. That's what we'd expect to see that across that. And that was across both the network architects on the telco side and the mobile side, which is refreshing. That gets you synergies across these different systems. And then better infrastructure and network performance, right? Obviously, we want to make sure that what we put in place is working, and it's working the best it can. And achieving a lower total cost of ownership was kind of a new one for me. I've worked in this space for a while, and that was an interesting perspective, and that was kind of an insight that lit some light bulbs in my head of, here's some new opportunities that we should be looking at. And some of them even include like power management and things like that, which I really hadn't taken into account too much from my past experiences. Now, I've said a lot, so I'm going to pause for a minute and see if there's any questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. That was good. So I have a comment. I think we recognize that telco systems are very, very complex, and you touched on how can we simplify them, not only in terms of operations, but also in terms of adding new technology. I mean, we're all going through the SD-WAN revolution, if I will put it that way. And we're struggling with it because our systems, and virtualization too, our systems just simply don't really understand virtual systems very well. And so we're finding that the tools that we're using, are great for the traditional networks, but we're having to rewrite them and reinvent them. So how do others feel? I know we have 1 more minute. So, so given that we have 1 more minute, I'm just going to thank you, everybody who participated. I think I got a lot out of this. Lee and Yuhang, thank you very much for Yuhang particularly for putting together the set of slides. And thank you for Steve for being put on the spot.
I guess about the other thing I'd say is if there's the feedback, we'd love to see that. So if people have feedback that comes to mind after this, please, share that. Beth, I know there's wiki pages and there's ways to input this, or, send messages or whatever, so we can make this the best possible resource for the team.
Right. Yeah, we want this white paper to be read and useful. or rather useful in red.
Yeah.
I think they kind of fit together. So with that, Jim, I think we have reached the bottom of the hour, and the next session is
Next session